were just talking about the unpredictability of the Championship. Let's go on to the most unpredictable result of the weekend. Wayne Rooney's Plymouth 3, Sunderland 2. Plymouth's first win under Wayne Rooney, and it ends Sunderland's 100% start to the season. 3-word reviews here from Plymouth fans. Argyle Life says, Rooney, Rooney, Rooney. Matt on the Patreon says, Joe Edwards, Superman. Matthew says, Ryan Dilks, wrong. For Sunderland, Dan on the Patreon says, curse strikes again. Yes, sorry, Sunderland fans. Michael says, defended like donkeys. Justin, a result I will admit I never, ever saw coming.
Well, of course you didn't, because you picked Sunderland as your banker. So
Exactly.
I don't think many people would have seen this result coming. If you just look at form and results, looking at that plainly, you'd have expected an easy Sunderland win, a routine Sunderland win. When you go into a little bit deeper, form, Sunderland's ability to just nullify their opposition in the first 4 games for the international break, and then Plymouth's inability to create chances inside the box. No one would have seen this coming if you're reading into it that much. So yeah, this was quite an incredible result and a really gutsy performance from Plymouth. And one way you think, okay, we can finally lay some praise on top of this team, because to be honest, they haven't been great. I know Plymouth fans might disagree with that, but they haven't been a good watch so far from a neutral point of view. So this really was a bit of I wouldn't say a turning point, but a turn for the books. That's a saying. We'll use that.
Yeah, it definitely was a turn for the books. Scotty said Sunderland deserved their lead in the first half, but Plymouth had a sniff of encouragement towards the end of it and really took that into the second half. And that second half was by far the best we've seen from Plymouth this season. They were actually going forwards with purpose and looked threatening. And it eventually paid off when Morgan Whittaker smashed one at Anthony Patterson, who pulls off what would have been the save of the weekend. He tips it onto the bar and it bounces straight into Dan Ballard, who bundles it into his own net. And he had an absolute nightmare of a game, actually, because not only did he score that own goal, he made a mess of the clearance for the second goal, which then led to him giving away a penalty for Plymouth's second. And then there were scenes in the 93rd minute when Joe Edwards scored the winner. And look, they bloody needed this, didn't they, Justin? Because it was a pretty poor start to the season for Plymouth. So this result is massive for them.
It really was. It really was. I think, firstly, kudos to Joe Edwards, who's become a bit of a clutch player for Plymouth. Not surprising, he's been there for so long, but he scored the crucial winner against Hull last season on the final day of the season, and scored the winner here. So he's quite clearly a legend at Plymouth. So for him to bag really important 90-minute winners, it's becoming a bit of a habit for him. But yeah, this really was a huge result for Plymouth and a huge performance. I think the biggest thing was the turning point with the mentality and the performance in the second half. And you saw it in celebrations with Rooney, the relief you feel when you get that win. And I think the confidence it will give certain individuals will be massive as well. They weren't fantastic here. They weren't amazing. They still gave away a lot of chances, but going forwards, there was a huge difference. There was a huge purpose to Plymouth. And, they weren't taking pot shots in and around the box. They were getting into Sunderland's box. They were putting them under pressure. And that told towards the end of the game. It was also this really pointless stat. It was Rooney's first league win since December. So maybe the doubts, he starts to feel completely shreds as well. It's worth pointing out that he hasn't had a job prior to August since January. So yeah, it pretty much makes sense. But it's a fun stat.
It is a fun stat, because I'm sure there's still quite a few games in there, Justin. Well, coming off the back of this, Plymouth fans seem to react like this was one in the face of us, including the YouTuber Pieface, who took a dig at us. He's a big Plymouth fan. It's not a surprise that this happens anymore, because anytime we say anything negative about a team, it seems to be part of some sort of an agenda. Isn't it? Exactly. But let's be real. There hasn't been anything that we've said so far this season about Plymouth that was incorrect. They have been absolutely dire so far, haven't they? Any genuinely honest Plymouth fan will say the same thing. So that's why this was a real turn for the books, this result. And they played with a lot more purpose. They looked like they actually knew what they had to do when they had the ball. But I think the most impressive thing for me is how solid they were at the back. Yes, they conceded 2 goals, but the first one I don't think was a penalty. And then Sunderland didn't really have much else in terms of genuine chances. I mean, the second goal was more of a half chance, really, where it's just been hit through a big amount of bodies and has just creeped in. So that will be a huge source of confidence and encouragement, considering Sunderland are the joint top scorers in the league. That is a big thing for Plymouth, who have historically always been a poor side at the back, even under Steven Schumacher. There's definitely still cause for scepticism around Plymouth. And I say that because each of the 3 goals they scored came with a fair bit of fortune, weren't exactly crafted out. And despite all their pressure, they didn't create any really good chances. But in terms of confidence, this will be massive, and that could go a long way for Plymouth and Wayne Rooney, Justin.
It has to go a long way. It absolutely has to go a long way. And I think, if we talk about sort of the chances to created, yes, it wasn't prolific, but for a team that has gone from not really being an overwhelming threat inside the opposition box, they were much more so the case here. And then we saw it in the second half where the energy increased, they got more shots off, and they got into better areas, and that pressure did eventually tell. That does have an impact, especially when you're against a young side in Sunderland. But that pressure told, and again, the confidence that can give the players and Wayne Rooney and the fans is massive, because not only have they won a game of football, but they've beaten the best side in the division to date. Yes, we're only a few games in, but Sunderland have been the best side in the division, and Plymouth beat them. Simple as that.
They have. They absolutely have. There's no denying that for me. I mean, I said that on Friday once. That Sunderland were the team who have impressed me the most, and Plymouth were the one who impressed me the least. So, yeah, that just makes this an even bigger turn for the Bucks, and it'll be interesting to see how Plymouth build on this result. Got to be said, a long journey for Sunderland fans to see their team concede a 93rd minute winner into 800-mile round trip. Cool, that's a long one, isn't it? But, yeah, Sunderland, this wasn't as good as what we've seen from them, was it? They didn't conjure up the same dynamism or control that we had seen in the first 4 games, did they?
I think that was more so the second half. First half was fine. There were a lot of mistakes, a lot of naivety, and I think that's something you expect from a team as young as Sunderland. I think the high bar they set themselves it might skew that expectation a little bit, but I think they've punched very well so far, and I think if you eradicate some of the mistakes they made in the second half, they probably come away from this game with 3 points. Yes, they were slightly fortunate with the penalty that probably shouldn't have got, but there were plenty of positives there to take. Yes, a 93rd minute equaliser will hurt. 93rd minute winner will hurt a lot, but they scored 2 away from home. They still created plenty of chances. They were just sloppy in moments before losing control in the second half, and that's something that old Reggie Lebris will look at. Yeah,
they were off it. There's no denying that. They've been so good at both ends of the pitch so far this season, but they weren't here, particularly at the back, where individual errors really cost them. As we say, Dan Ballard had an absolute stinker of an afternoon. But it is to be expected that Sunderland weren't going to play as well as they have done in every game this season, because, look, they're not Man City. They were inevitably going to dip at some point, weren't they? So it was a bad day at the office. It's an obvious thing to say, but the big thing for them now is how they bounce back. They've got Middlesbrough at home next weekend, which is a tough game, bit of a local derby. Optimism levels have been so high after this start, and a win would be a great way to get things back on track straight away. So we'll see. I don't think you can read too much into this game, ultimately, with Sunderland, because it is just a one-off, and up until this point, they have been amazing. So one bad afternoon doesn't change everything as far as I'm concerned. Let's go to the team who have displaced Sunderland. Top of the league, Justin. It's West Bromwich Albion. It's after they beat Portsmouth 3-0 this Sunday afternoon. 3-word reviews here from West Brom fans. Ethan on our Patreon says, stop the season. JP Baggy, also on our Patreon, says, stop the counts. Justin, this game was it was sort of a game of 2 halves in a way, in the way that first half was fairly even, actually. West Brom, probably the better of the 2 teams in the first half, but a fairly even-ish one. Second half, West Brom just cruised it, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. You'd expect that. I do think West Brom created the better chances in the first half anyway, so they'd have been disappointed not to go into it with the lead, or albeit scoring in the first minute does help.
They were in the lead, Justin, but you mean more in the lead?
Yeah, more in the lead. It does help scoring in the first minute. So yeah, it was a good performance. But I think that the thing that impresses me most about this West Brom side is how much more purpose they've got going forwards. I think from the core brand teams we've seen in the past, they're a little bit more rigid, but this team attacks with a lot more purpose and a lot more sort of, I won't say dynamism, but there's a lot more directness to them, and that's a really, really refreshing thing to see. They're creating a lot more chances from open play, not just relying on set pieces or anything like that. So, yeah, this was a really, really good performance, and one that sort of I won't say makes you raise your eyebrows, but you say, okay, this West Brom side means business, because they're not a team that I'd expected to be at top of the table, probably at any point in the season, maybe sort of flirting in and around it. But being top of the table now, although it doesn't really mean much, is a testament to how they've really transformed their playing style under Corbyn.
I'll pull you up on that in a sec, but going back to the game itself, I mean, Josh Maja scoring again. That guy is just on fire. Isn't he? Top scorer in the Championship. After some great work from Tom Fellows, he just cannot stop scoring at the moment. And he nearly scored another one after a ridiculous save by Will Norris, which is one of the most remarkable moments of the weekend, where the ball is literally about an inch from going over the line. But that was an unbelievable moment in that game. But then Alex Mowat with a beautiful goal for his first one. He's just, when he scores goals, they don't tend to be normal.
They're not boring,
do they? They always tend to have a bit of beauty behind them. So it was a phenomenal performance from West Brom, and here they are, top of the league, Justin. And just to kind of pull up what you were saying there, I think it's strange with West Brom, because we were heading into the season, really quite hot on them, weren't we? And then when we had this news about, them trying to balance the books as much as possible because of PSR rules, we started to take a step back. But here they are once again under Carlos Corberán, just doing what they do. Carlos Corberán doing Carlos Corberán things, Justin. It's just remarkable that they've started this well once again.
Yeah, I think this is the mad thing about Carlos Corberán and what he can do with his teams. I know we sort of were joking before the international break about sort of, the more severe the circumstances on a football club, the better Corberán performs. But, I think the best thing about West Brom is there aren't too many noises coming out from the top of the club, which is fantastic. You don't want that. I know they're having to deal with transfer restrictions, but they're dealing with it and dealing with it really well. And Corberán, I think again a testament to him is how he's transformed a lot of the players in this group. Josh Maja is looking fantastic. He's looking really lightning in front of goal. Alex Mowat's sort of rediscovered his consistency once again, because he's since he left Barnes, he's not really found a home until sort of last season under Corberán. So I think that's as
I think another shout, Justin. Another shout is Carlan Grant, who last couple of seasons even, he's been a completely different player to the one that we've been used to. But it is only 5 games. He looks like the Carlan Grant that we all know and love.
Yeah. And again, if you can get these players, I mean, you look at Carlan Grant, big money move all those years ago from Huddersfield. Josh Maja, big money move at the time to Bordeaux. These are big players. Alex Mowat was well courted after as well, but they just lost their way a little bit. But I think under Corberán, I think he will guide you to where you need to go, and he's doing that with West Brom as well. Just the ability to get every bit of quality out of the team is on show here.
Yeah, it's one of the most special traits you can have as a manager, being able to get players playing back to their best. It's such a difficult thing to do. I mean, one manager who comes to mind when I think of that's Kieran McKenna. You look at what he did with, for example, Massimo Luongo last season. But Carlos Corberán is another one who's just proven time and time again that he's so good at that, because the likes of Josh Maja, Alex Mowat, Carlan Grant, before working with Carlos Corberán, looked like their careers were going on a downwards trajectory, didn't they? And now here they are, having playing some of their best football in a long time. And then you've also got a young lad like Tom Fellows, who, I mean, we've been giving plenty of hype now for several months, but is just seemingly getting better and better. He reminds me a bit of a young Jared Bowen, actually, cutting in from the right-hand side onto his left foot and just gliding past defenders and causing absolute havoc in the final third. And that's just what Carlos Corberán does, gets the best out of the individuals. And, tactically, he's absolutely nailed West Brom so far, hasn't he? And that's why they are top of the league. It's got to be said, upcoming games looking pretty tasty as well, Justin. I think they've got Plymouth coming up next. And then after that, they've got a couple of other games, like Sheffield Wednesday, for example. They've not done very well so far. Middlesbrough's a tough game, but at the moment, with West Brom, they've got nothing to fear, have they? And to kind of pull you up on for what you were saying earlier, Justin, about, them not expected to be, near the top of the table this season, their consistency from last season shows they're more than capable of staying there. Once they get going, like they have done already, they have shown that they can stay up there if they want to.
Yeah, no, you are right, and I think it's probably more. It's probably more down to a lot of the restrictions and everything, and the lack of transfer movement that they probably wanted to make wasn't quite there. But they deal with every single blow that they get, and as you say, the consistency that Corberán can draw out of a team is fantastic. Because, again, another testament is, at no point last season did we ever sort of contemplate West Brom dropping out of the top six. There was a bit of a wobble towards the end of the season, but at no point did they look like they were going to drop out of the top six, probably from about October onwards. Now, if they can be in that top four berth from September to October, we've seen that they can develop that consistency and go again. So, it wouldn't be out of the question to see them maintain it, but there's still a lot of football to be played.
There certainly is. Justin, let's quickly talk about Portsmouth, because they are one of only 3 teams yet to win a game this season now. They are second from bottom after this result. What are we thinking with them? Because it's really hard to nail them down, really, isn't it? Just because of how ridiculously tough their start to the season has been.
They've had a tough start. They've had to play a lot of really good sides. I think if you'd have looked at their fixtures coming into the season before a ball was kicked, you'd have said Sunderland might have been one of the more forgiving ones. But their form was incredible, and they obviously got panned at Fratton Park before the international break, and again got panned here at Fratton Park. I think there's probably a mix of a fair few injuries that John Messina's had to deal with. There's some senior players missing. He's having to juggle a lot. And on top of not being able to get a lot of transfer movement going as well, as we were speaking about in our transfer window episode during the international break, there's just a lot of things that probably needs to be transitioned, and it's not ideal timing. And again, you mix that with a really tough start with some really good sides. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I know Messina spoke about wanting to press a little bit more, but I don't think he's quite got the personnel to do that. So, yeah. It's a tough start, really tough start. Conceding some poor goals as well, but they've played some good teams. But I don't think you can really lay on that excuse for too long.
I'm not sure about that, Justin. I think I wouldn't be too worried about Portsmouth as things stand. I imagine a lot of neutrals will be looking at the table and be thinking, "All right, I thought Portsmouth might do quite well considering they won League One relatively comfortably in the end without." Looking at the context of how ridiculously hard their start to the season has been. I mean, it genuinely must be one of the toughest starts any team has ever had in Championship history. I don't think I'm over exaggerating when I say that, because the calibre of teams that they've had to face at the start of the season is absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, they've still got Burnley coming up next, which just shows that it's not getting any easier. And then they've got Sheffield United after that as well. So That's just really, really unfortunate. The big concern for me would be whether the momentum that Portsmouth had heading into the season after winning League One so comfortably may have been completely derailed by this really tough start. Because I think that is a big thing. Look, Oxford and Derby have done pretty well, haven't they, so far, after carrying on that momentum from last season. And Portsmouth may not have that due to who they've had to play. It's got to be said, though, this is only their second loss in 5, despite the standard of teams that they've been playing. So that's a pretty good going. And look, a lot of the players they've had have started pretty well as well. I mean, Callum Lang has looked really threatening, amongst others as well. So I wouldn't be too worried about Portsmouth, is what I'm trying to say, Justin.
I get what you mean, but I think it's just... I'm putting it down to sort of the standard of goals that they are conceding, the amount of chances they're conceding as well. But you do have to caveat that with the standard of teams that they're playing. West Brom, Sunderland, Leeds, Luton as well.
Basically every top team. Anyone you expected to be near the top this season, it's basically them.
Yeah, if you made your pre-season predictions, Portsmouth have played any other team you put in the top 6, granted.
Yes.
It's been a painful start. And then you put it down to that. But as I say, I don't want to lean on that excuse too much, because they have to probably show a little bit more. And again, that comes down to experience of John Messina. But then again, if you compare the standard of teams that Oxford and Derby have played compared to Portsmouth, it's chalk and cheese. They haven't had the quality. They haven't come up against the quality that Portsmouth have, but they've had better results. And I think that's probably more telling as to who the teams that they've played.
There was a huge clash at Elland Road between two of the favourites for promotion this season. But it was Burnley who came out on top as they beat Leeds 1-0 thanks to a goal from Luca Coglioscio. 3-word reviews from Burnley fans. Kieran says Scott Parker ball. Reese says resolute second half. Tom says Parker imitated Dyche ball. For Leeds, KS says same old story. Trent says not clinical enough. Youngie says finding a cliff. Jesus, it's a bit dark. And Burnley had 29% possession in this game. Picked up 7 cards. Leeds had 17 shots to Burnley 7. I know he's not having a nice time himself right now, but Sean Dyche will have been looking down on this Burnley performance and been saying, "You're making me proud, lads," won't he, Justin?
He really would have. That Dyche comment is fantastic because it was as Dyche ball as you can get, really. It's proper shithousery. It's proper shithousery. I was sceptical as to whether or not to call it shithousery because I think Burnley don't really have that standard of player. But when you set your team up the way Scott Parker did, to be rigid, really hard to break down, and ultimately, a very tough cookie to come up against at Elland Road. Yeah, it's a bit of shithousery. And then there's the added shithousery of the players and their reactions after the game, which I'm sure we'll speak on in a moment. But it was a bizarre game, and it's just one you just knew was going to happen. You just knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, I thought Leeds actually played all right here, but just couldn't find a way through. And we did allude to it on Friday, but Scott Parker's record in these games is remarkable. In Bournemouth's promotion season, he only lost 1 of 10 games against fellow top 6 sides. With Fulham, he only lost 3 in 10. Despite all his faults, and don't get me wrong, he does have a few, he knows how to set up his teams in these types of games. We've seen it twice now against Leeds and against Luton. Keeping it tight at the back and then hitting the opposition when the chance presents itself. Scott Parker is brilliant at doing that. It makes us. It's a bit surprising, really, that he struggled so much as a coach in the Premier League, considering he does have this record of, being able to do that against the better teams. But fair play to him. Not many teams will get 3 points away at Elland Road and Kenilworth Road this season. The issue is getting consistent results against the rest of the teams in the league. But when it's these types of games against the so-called better opposition, Scott Parker knows what he's doing, Justin.
It's going to be a bit of a Scott Parker hot take that I've literally just thought about now. So
here we go.
See what happens. I think Scott Parker wants to play a certain way, and that certain way he cannot do it. He cannot do it. He wants to play possession. He wants to play on the front foot. He can't do it. This is what he's good at. This is what he can get out of teams. I know they were a bit shit, and his record in the Premier League is a bit shit, but counter-attacking football, I think, is where they look at home, where they look more comfortable with this Burnley side, especially because we saw the devastation against Luton, we saw the devastation against Cardiff, and how quick they can break. I think if Scott Parker plays that way, they will get more results and they will create more chances than they will trying to play on the front foot, as we saw against Blackburn. I know Blackburn went out to 10 men, but as I say, that hot take on Scott Parker is he can't play possession ball, he has to play direct, and I think that's where he falls into a fault for me, is he wants to play one way, but he's better at another. Simple.
He wants to play the way his hair looks. Do you know what I mean? Like Mediterranean kind of style.
Sexy, gorgeous, glorious football, like his hair.
Yeah.
He should shave it.
But he's still got that bit of Brexit in him, and that's always going to be stuck with him.
If he just quickly, if he shaved his head, this team would be undefeatable.
Well, you've heard it here first, Scott. It helps when he's got a player like Luca Coglioscio, doesn't it? Who got the goal here. It's actually his birthday today, Justin, on Sunday, when we're recording this. So
incredible.
Happy birthday.
Wow.
Luca turns 20, but at just 20 years old, he is some talent, isn't he, Justin?
What if you just take this goal into isolation? It's an 85-yard sprint, picking up and preempting a slip from Manor Solomon, and then the calmness to as I say, sort of evade the defenders and put the ball into the back of the net in front of the Leeds faithful. It was exceptional, and I think if you have that level of calmness, is really important. And again, he's got another testament to his qualities. He's got US football fighting over him, along with Italian football fighting over his nationality, and it's a nice position for him to be in. But again, it's just a real thumbs up to how good he is and how good he can be. It's just about developing that consistency. And again, I think if you can play that direct counter-attacking football, I think he will score goals.
Yeah, and I will be honest, I wasn't hugely across him when Burnley came back down to the Championship. That's probably because he signed last year in the Premier League and missed more than half the season with injury. But he has been phenomenal so far in the Championship. He is American, as you alluded to, Justin. His family moved to Spain when he was 12 to give him the best chance of becoming a footballer. So quite a big leap of faith in your son's ability as a footballer. But he ended up at the Espanyol Academy, where Burnley signed him from last summer, for just $2.5 million.
Ooh.
Which looks a bargain in hindsight now, doesn't it? Particularly because I think the likes of Wolves were sniffing around him for probably around 10 times that at least. So despite him being so young, he looks as if he could be the main man for Burnley this season and have a big say on their promotion chances, because he does look a real talent. It's worth saying there was a strong penalty shout for Leeds in this game, Justin. Joe Worrell with a challenge on Manor Solomon, which I've got to say looked a lot more like a penalty than not a penalty. Hard to tell how much of the ball Joe Worrell gets. Just quickly, that, Justin?
I can't give a definitive answer. It's a really daft challenge from Joe Worrell. It depends what side of the support spectrum you sit on. But I can't make it. I've watched it 2 or 3 times, and I can't tell you whether Worrell's touched the ball or the leg first. So can you expect
I think he definitely gets the leg first, but I don't know how much he gets of the ball. So it's a really difficult one, but Leeds may feel a bit aggrieved about that. There was also a lovely bit of shithousery from Hannibal Medri, winding up the Leeds fans after being subbed off. Yeah. Do you appreciate that, Justin?
I do. I hate it. I watch the video and go, what a knobhead. But then I go, oh, but I do love it. I love it. I wish he was on my team doing it.
The thing is, he nearly signed for Leeds. He's been strongly linked before towards the end of the transfer window. So it's clear where his allegiances lie already. I also enjoyed Jeremy Sarmiento tweeting, putting the L in Elland Road.
So needless.
We need more stuff like this, I think. It's good stuff. It's really good stuff. Also got to give a mention for Will Ferrell, who was at this game, Justin. He's a minor investor in Leeds, and this was his first time watching his new investment. He probably watched this performance and thought they needed an anchorman, Justin.
They have Ethan Ampadu.
Another one.
I don't care about your jokes. They have an anchorman. They need a bloody goal scorer, is what they need.
Or number 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
At least he could say to Ethan Ampadu, you stay classy, Ethan.
There we go. I tried to trash on your joke. It was. You saved it. Well done.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
But there we go. But now it's time for us, ladies and gents, to check out how our second tier bet builder and multiple with SBK got on, which included our game of the week, as well as just a nice 2 bankers from Friday. Our game of the week was Leeds United versus Burnley, and our bet builder on that was a £44 return from a £5 stake. In our bet builder, we had Matteo Joseph to score, which obviously didn't come in. He did miss an absolute sitter, though. Yeah, it's got to be said. So we feel slightly aggrieved about that. Burnley under 1.5 goals. That one did obviously come in. Burnley to get the most cards. That definitely came in. Burnley had loads of cards. And then Leeds to win. That was a loser as well. So 2 out of 4 right on that. I don't think that's too bad, because I think on a different day, that could have very easily come in.
Joseph puts that chance away. Different game.
Massively, absolutely right. And then as for our multiple, that would have paid out £45 from a £10 stake. We had Leeds, Middlesbrough and Sunderland all to win. I had a really good feeling about that.
So
as well,
did
Justin.
So did I.
I thought this looks like the one. And we've really gone back to square one with this one. But we'll be back with another multiple in this coming Friday's preview show with SBK. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll go through some more games from the Championship this past weekend. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast, and before we get on to some more of the weekend's games, we've had some more suggestions for Coca-Colasman and Empowersman. Justin, this is of course after the Barclaysman trend on Twitter this past week. Chris suggested Robert Earnshaw as a contender for an Empowersman / Coca-Colasman. One I assume you're not massively fond of, Justin, as a Derby fan.
Oh, I don't care about that. He was just good. He was a great goal scorer. Couldn't do anything else other than score goals, which is a handy trait to have as a striker.
Flips. Could do flips as well.
Great at somersaults. Really good at somersaults. He's got a son his son's turning professional now. His son's at an academy somewhere.
It's all happening now into bloody Kumas, Dan's, All the N-Power / Coca-Colas men have all got kids now. It's a dark world.
They seem to be They seem to. I'm not going to go on to that, actually, don't want to.
Yeah, I think I knew where that was going. Tricky Tree wanted to put forward Lewis McGugan, who was always one of my favourite players, Justin. He just had the spectacular in him all the time, didn't he? And that free kick against Ipswich. Oh.
something that gets regurgitated a lot on the old Twitter, isn't it?
It's because I just think about it every so often, and I'm like, I need to tweet this right now. Cameron Hughes says Steve Sidwell, who didn't have much time in the Championship, really, did he? Because he spent much more time in the Premier League, but he was possibly even the best player in that Reading team, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's 04-05 and then 05-06. Obviously, that promotion season with Reading. I don't know. I'm struggling with that one. Maybe I'm being a bit tight on the criteria, but I think I associate it more with the old Barclays.
You definitely won't on this one, Justin. Paul Devons says Sylvan Ebanks-Blake. Arguably the ultimate Coca-Cola's man.
I think he's the perfect Coca-Cola's man because everyone forgets about him. And I think that is just the great shame and great tragedy of Championship football that he's a forgotten man, yet one of the greatest goal scorers at second tier level ever.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable player he was. So there you go, ladies and gents. The latest in our Coca-Cola's men and Empower's men. If you have any suggestions, you can either email us at secondtierpod@gmail.com or DM us on Twitter at secondtierpod with any suggestions that you may have. Let's carry on with some of the games from the weekend, Justin. And Sheffield United's unbeaten start to the season continued after they beat Hull 2-0 on Friday night. 3-word reviews from Sheffield United fan Callum. He says, mauled by United. For Hull, Simeon on the Patreon says, Volta is deluded. Nick says, sacked by October. Tom says, time is ticking. So you can guess how they're feeling about things right now. 2 counter-attacks, 2 goals. And that's all Sheffield United needed, wasn't it, Justin? It
was a lesson in counter-attacking and game management, actually, from the Blades. But it's really the fast starts that they're getting that are probably benefiting them most. They've scored in the first 15 minutes of 4 of the last 5 Championship games, which is a very, very nice habit to have. You know, I think they're a good defensive unit. They're always going to be an organised defensive unit under Chris Wilder. 100 goals plus aside from their Premier League campaign last season. I'll add that caveat in there. And I think as well, Wilder not being overly happy with the performance is probably a handy indicator of things to come as well. I do agree. I do agree with Wilder, sorry, I should say. I don't think we've seen Blades hit the levels that they're capable of yet, which is a really, really good place to be for them. So yeah, good counter-attacking performance, good away performance. You take it 2-0, put your feet up for the rest of the weekend.
Not bad at all, is it? Hull did have some very good chances, but that was only after they went 2-0 down, really. And Hull just kept pursuing with this really high line, and it meant they were massively exposed every time they lost the ball. In fact, I don't actually think Sheffield United were amazing here, but they just exploited Hull when they needed to and made the most of it. I suppose professional is one way of describing it. But it does leave the Blades with 3 wins and 2 draws. They are outside the top 6 by virtue of the 2-point deduction they had at the start of the season. But you can't really argue with an unbeaten start, can you, Justin?
Not when you consider, that with Sheffield United, you have to really consider and contextualise that it could have been either as it's going now, pretty well, or it could have been an absolute disaster. They lost a lot of really key players. Spent a long time sort of replacing them. Probably didn't get as many bodies into Bram Lane as they wanted. There's the ownership problems that we've spoken about before as well this last week. So there's a lot of factors working at Sheffield United here. But actually, I know we've criticised Chris Wilder a lot. To his credit, he's put the focus back on the football. He's not moaning about it too much. He's just focusing on the football, and I think we're seeing that on the pitch. Yes, they're not quite getting into that stride that they want to, but they're getting results. And if they're getting results and not playing as well as they could do, what happens when they start playing really well? Yeah, they're gonna win games.
Yeah. Well, even though there's a bit of uncertainty right now over the takeover, this has been an ideal couple of months for Sheffield United, bouncing back after such a miserable season and then all this upheaval in the summer is great. And I imagine every Blade out there is absolutely delighted with this start. And the squad is looking so good. I am loving this squad. I gave it the big gold ribbon of best transfer window of the summer just over a week ago because they've recruited brilliantly. And I said the squad is arguably better now than it was in the Premier League. So that's quite the turn for the books, I suppose, isn't it? I will say, performance-wise, there is still quite a lot of work to do. Yes, they're unbeaten, but I haven't come away from a Sheffield United game being hugely impressed. I feel like they lack a bit of control in games, which is a surprise considering how good their players are. But as they often say, if you're not playing well and still getting results, it's the sign of a good team, isn't it? And Sheffield United, they'll be chuffed to bits with their start to the season, won't they?
They will, and I think that lack of control probably stems from it being a very new group. It's a very new group with a lot of new faces into the dressing room. You know, I've mentioned before that they lost a lot of culture, a lot of leadership in the summer, probably over the past 12 months actually, with a lot of key players leaving. So they're having to re-establish that, and I think that is probably going to sort of eke its way onto the pitch as well, where they do lack control. A lot of young players that have come into the team, like Ollie Arblaster and Andre Brooks as well, which again is going to impact things. So yeah, they're getting results and not playing well, as I was alluding to. They start playing well and getting results at the same time. It's going to be a really positive, or has the potential to be a really positive season for the Blades.
Yeah. How concerned are we with Hull then, Justin? They are third from bottom, 3 points on the board, yet to win a game. What are we thinking?
I think naturally you will be concerned, but we're 5 games in, and this was Tim Walter's first game with a full squad. The performance was okay. We saw some of the aggressive front foot football we expected to get from him. There was some brave play. Sometimes it was reckless, but when it comes off, it's brave. When it doesn't, it's pretty daft. But there was a lot more fluidity going forwards, and almost sort of a negligent defending at times. But that's probably against what we expect from Tim Walter. So I'm not concerned yet. Let's see how the next 3 or 4 games goes.
You might not be, Justin, but Hull fans, I think it's a different story of them. Yeah. One amazing stat that I've seen is that Hull are yet to lead a game this season, which is amazing, isn't it? It's an amazing stat, particularly for a manager whose football has been called heart attack football by journalists over in Germany, and it's something that he's endorsed as Tim Walter because it was so attacking. But so far, they've scored 2 goals. You know, that's the heart attack football that we've seen so far with Hull. It's not really bearing the fruit that we were expected. In fairness to Tim Walter, he's working with a group of players who have had very little time to gel. You know, 15 players have come in, 16 left this past summer. It's crazy. And whatever style of football you're trying to play, it's going to be difficult to implement, particularly when it's a high risk style like his is. So you can make excuses for him, but ultimately this is a results business. And will he get the time? Because Hull fans are very frustrated right now, as we heard with the 3-word reviews. Many are telling us that. You see it on social media. And let's not pretend that the owner, Achonili Charlie, won't see it either. He's put a lot of money into this club. We all know he's a very ambitious owner. And I don't think he'll be waiting around to see if Walter can turn this around. And that might not be fair. But that's football, Justin.
It is football. I'd almost put the spotlight back onto those running the club on a day-to-day basis. I'd argue that the finger should be pointed upstairs for the poor start, for not having the players in place for Tim Walter to work with.
That's probably true, Justin, but that's not how football works, unfortunately, is it?
They're not going to sack themselves.
It's always the manager who's the fall guy.
Yeah, not going to sack themselves. I'm probably just more saying that it's quite unfair to suggest that Tim Walter is failing completely and it's a disaster when actually the recruitment strategy or the transfer strategy this summer probably let them down massively. They're playing catch up, and that's as simple as it gets.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair, Justin. But you know, it's
not the bloody industry.
It's a bloody results game. Let's go to a team who have had somehow even poorer results than Hull. It's Cardiff City. Their terrible start to the season continued after they lost 1-0 away at Derby. 3-word reviews for Derby. Brad says another home win for Cardiff. Gareth says alarmingly terrible again. Before we get on to Cardiff, Justin, talk to me about that Iber Adams miss.
It's really unfair because Derby's performance was actually really good, but everyone's just going to talk about this miss. I mean, the poor sod runs his balls off for 96 minutes for his legs to betray him when taking that shot. Generally, one of the worst misses you'll see. He could have ran it in.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, honestly, search it out. I love how he realises he misses and goes crumbling to the ground in disappointment as soon as he hits it. It's glorious stuff. But, you know, when you often see a miss like that, you can usually make an excuse of a bobble or the pace of a cross or something. This was just a shocking miss. But it was great. I enjoyed it. It didn't matter, though, did it? And it condemned Cardiff to the bottom of the table with just 1 point to their name after 5 games. Manager Errol Bullitt refused to conduct interviews after the game. And it's amazing how quickly things can change, isn't it? Towards the end of last season, there was concern from Cardiff fans that he may leave because he was out of contract. There was jubilation when he agreed a new deal. Now Cardiff fans are feeling the complete opposite way with him, aren't they?
I think when you don't speak to the media after a pretty poor away defeat, because not only did he not create anything again, Derby did walk all over him at times. And when fans are making that sort of journey, I don't think it's a great look. And I'm going to criticise Errol Bullitt here. He might have been advised by the club not to do it. I doubt it, because Omar Rizza, his assistant, came out and did all the media, covered all the media. But I know he's a very emotional, outspoken guy. And this was just a poor move for him not to speak to the media, and probably tells us a lot about where his future is going. Because performances have been really poor. Really, really poor, and this was just probably not their worst performance of the season, but it was a poor one. It was another poor one, another blank as well.
It certainly was. And if there was a hat which I would place on the team I was most concerned about, it would have been on Plymouth. But after this weekend, I would stick it firmly on the head of Cardiff City, because 1 point, only 1 goal scored. If they fail to score next week, they'll become only the 4th team in Championship history to score just once in their first 6 games. But look, them being crap going forwards, this isn't a new thing, is it? We've said it before. They were crap going forwards last season, but they were often bailed out by their expertise at set pieces. And now those goals have dried up, and you're left with a team who has very little threat to opposition teams. And I mean, they've got Leeds coming up next, so it's difficult to see it getting better before it gets worse. And I wonder how close the Cardiff board are to thinking that things need to change.
Do you think the 11 that they put on a regular basis, let's say one against Derby, is strong enough to be putting points on the board? Because I certainly think so.
Well, I did say at the start of the season, when Cardiff fans were given their new and improved squad or the billing of a potential top 6 contender, I was looking at it thinking, it's okay. I was not getting anywhere near as carried away as Cardiff fans were. So while it should obviously be doing better than it is, I'm not sure it's like an amazing team that should be looking much, much higher in the table. I think it is probably a lower mid-tables team, and even if they do get a new manager in, I don't think I'm looking at this thinking there's definitely going to be a vast improvement here. I think it may just be a casual improvement. I think
it's a lower mid-table side. It's very average squad, and I mean that in a positive way. Average mid-table, but I think it's just absolutely criminal that they're not creating any chances, and they are not getting the best out of the attacking quality that I do believe that they've got. There might be a lot of players there that just aren't what they used to be, but there's still a lot more there than what Errol Bullitt is currently getting out of them. So instead of just ignoring the media after the games, come out and take some ownership, man. It's just really poor, really, really poor.
Derby are now 8th after this win. They're above Leeds somehow. A quick answer as to how that has happened, I suppose, is Derby's home record. They've won 3 from 3 this season. In fact, they've only lost twice at Pride Park since the start of last September, which is a phenomenal record, even though the vast majority of that was in League One. For those who have stayed up late to find out, no, Ryan Nyambe did not score. He's now 13 appearances away from breaking the championship record for most games without a goal. Still yet to have a shot this season, so we may be waiting a while for that to change. But I continue to hope and pray every night that we get to see a Ryan Niambe goal at some point in the near future. Luton got their first win of the season after a 1-0 win away at Millwall, thanks to a beautiful goal by Teden Mengi. 3-word reviews from Luton fans. Toby says, up and running. Luton's Tactico says, more to come. Teden Mengi, a centre-back with a side-foot finish from outside of the box. Absolutely superb. But this was better from Luton, wasn't it? They controlled the game better than they did against QPR last time out. They did get a bit shaky towards the end, and they were fortunate that Thomas Kaminski made a great save from a one-on-one with Macaulay Langstaff. I'd still like to see them be better when it comes to creating chances that aren't set pieces and or crosses into the box, but I think Rob Edwards even admitted that after the game, that there's still a lot of improvement to do, and it's good that he recognises that, isn't it, Justin? But they desperately needed this. Hopefully this is the start of their season properly getting underway.
I think one way of looking at it is that they defended how they've not defended yet this season. I think that's the big positive I'd take away from it. Yes, attacking quality wasn't really on show from Luton. I thought Millwall probably carved out the better chances in the game. And if it wasn't for Teden Mengi's beautiful goal, his second goal in his career, by the way, then yeah, it would have been a different fixture for Luton. But the way they defended is what impressed me the most. You know, Millwall took the game into a direction they wanted it to go. They played a lot of long balls, a lot of long free kicks and throws, etc. Luton had to be dogged. They had to dig in, and they've struggled to do that. They've really struggled to do that. We saw I argue they got a little bit bullied against QPR. So not only is it a big win, but it's a morale boosting win. It's a clean sheet when your backs were against the wall, and you stood up, you rolled your sleeves up, and you came out the other end chuffed.
Yeah, really, really good win. And they will be chuffed. Justin, you're absolutely right about that. More good news for Luton as well. They've officially submitted a planning application for a new stadium. The club say they hope the 25,000-seater stadium called Power Court will be complete by 2027. Feels like this has been in the pipeline for a long, long time now. So I'm glad to see we're starting to actually see some substance to these plans. And it's great news for Luton, isn't it? But bad news for Kenilworth Road, Justin.
Well, yeah, it is good news for Luton, and hopefully we'll take them into a different sort of direction. But I feel like without the Kenny, Luton become a normal football club. And
yeah, I see what you mean.
Normal's not where you want to be.
It does make them unique, doesn't it? And I'm hoping Power Court is kind of paying homage to Kenilworth Road in some way, because it is such a legendary ground. But we'll wait to see when we get more details behind the Power Court plans, I suppose. Let's go to Blackburn. Their excellent start continued with a 3-0 win against Bristol City. 3-word reviews from Blackburn fans. Michael says Ohashi was 150k. Yeah, crazy. Northern Natara says, hey Yuki. Dave says, Japanese Messi masterclass. A lot of love for Yuki Ohashi here from Blackburn fans. For Bristol City, Spudwave on the Patreon says, well, he actually needed just one word. He says concerning. It's got to be said, despite what Spudwave had to say, 3-0 was probably a bit harsh on Bristol City. I'm not sure it was a 3-0 kind of game, but look, a beautiful brace by Yuki Ohashi. His second and Blackburn's third was a sensational solo goal. His first one wasn't bad either, actually. And here we are with Blackburn, who continue to far surpass expectations after 5 games, Justin.
They've been extraordinary, and I think that lovely mix of players defending with everything they've got. There was a sequence here where Ainsley Players had to make a big save at 2-0, and then Blackburn defenders were throwing their bodies in the way of the ball. Yeah, you expect that from a professional footballer anyway, defending their own goal. But when you mix that with some really incisive attacking play and good individuality as well, it's a great balance. And I think a lot of credit goes to John Eustace for finding that blend after looking really. He's really made them quite solid last season, and then what direction were they going to go in over the summer? But he's found a really, really good blend here. And I think the other telling thing is when Blackburn sell their top goal scorer, they just get better. They
just find someone else, don't they, to fill the gap? Like
Adam
before it was Brereton Diaz, Armstrong,
Schmodix.
Diaz. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous how they always find someone who's just an absolute hitman, and it seems like Yuki Ohashi is that man. Again, 4 goals for the season now, Justin. He has just had a phenomenal start to life in Lancashire, and for 150k, ridiculous business. But yeah, it's great to see Blackburn having this start because it feels like a bit of redemption for John Eustace after his sacking at Birmingham. Here he is showing what he can do, even though he hasn't got the greatest resources in the world to him. But getting the best out of players like Ohashi, Owen Beck at left back, I've been so impressed with in just 2 games. He's on loan from Liverpool, looks a superb player. I've been seriously impressed with him. And a shout for Lewis Travis who was essentially frozen out under Yondal Thomason. But I mean, he had a few spike comments to say about him this past week, but he's been reintegrated back into the team and has been playing some of his best football in a long time. So an excellent start for Blackburn. I'm not sure how much this start changes their ambitions for the season, but considering I saw a lot of people tipping them to go down, they're proving a hell of a lot of people wrong, aren't they, Justin?
They are. And again, there maybe is an underestimation of really what John Eustace can do. But as I say, we're only 5 games into the season. We can't get too carried away. As long as they keep that, lovely blend that I was, talking about going. And I think that, again, another big positive is they are keeping opposition at bay as well. They're not an open side. And they're creating chances themselves. It's just a great mix that Eustace is pinned down at Ewood Park, and if that continues, then they're going to be in games. I think they have had a kind run of fixtures. I would argue they, when you compare them to other teams like Portsmouth, for example, if Blackburn had that start, would be talking, in the same berth. Maybe not. But all this does is breed confidence, and that's what you need.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely fair, Justin. It's got to be said after a good start. Bristol City have lost back-to-back games 3-0. And I would say there have been 2 games which probably weren't 3-0 based on the balance of players I was alluding to just a second ago, but still, not a great look, and it is a bit worrying after what was a pretty good start for Liam Manning's side. And we'll finish with Sheffield Wednesday 1, QPR 1. 3-word reviews here from QPR fans. Josh says goalmouth scramble. Up the R's says Pinball Park Rangers. Captain Mayor just needed just one word. He says bundle. Not much to write home about after the first 90 minutes of this game. Everything before that was pretty snoozeworthy, wasn't it, really? And then everything after that point was absolutely glorious. Barry Bannon scores a worldie in the 92nd minute, edge of the box, bouncing volley into the top corner. A beautiful goal. But absolutely no one is going to remember that because of what happens next. Minutes later, QPR get a corner, and it's utter carnage. So the ball gets played in, it gets headed towards goal, cleared off the line twice, and then it goes to the edge of the 6-yard box and all hell breaks loose. The goalmouth scramble to end all goalmouth scrambles. I counted it, Justin. At one point, there's 20 QPR and Sheffield Wednesday players in the penalty area, including the QPR goalkeeper, by the way. And from the point it gets cleared off the line for the second time, I've timed it, there's 8 solid seconds of bodies on the ground, limbs flying everywhere, all while the ball doesn't move more than 2 yards. and then it eventually pops out, goes into the goal. It's honestly one of the funniest goals I think I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's genuinely one of the greatest goals I think I've ever witnessed. And I wish I was there. Some of the angles that have come from fan footage has just been outstanding. And generally I've got just the amount of time the ball is playing pinball in the moment. 8 seconds is so long.
You say pinball, Justin, it barely moves. There's so many people like flinging legs at it, but it's just stuck in the same place.
Players kicking the shit out of each other. I have seen Wednesday fans complaining about a foul on Liam Palmer, but there is no way you can discern anything in that group. Nothing. You cannot take anything away from that.
I saw people complaining about a foul on James Beadle because I think it was Jack Colback is basically lying on top of him. It's like, what's the referee meant to do? He's keeping his eye on so much there.
How much would we have been complaining if the referee blew up for that and said, "I'm not having this"? No, he let the chaos just unfold, and we were rewarded with one of the greatest moments in footballing history, and I stand by that statement.
When I first saw it, I was genuinely in tears. It's just absolutely golden. It reminds me of Black Friday in America. This is what it's like in a Best Buy somewhere, except the ball is a child.
Yeah. The child, the ball is a flat screen TV.
And eventually gets booted across the building. One of the best things as well is every angle of it is sensational.
Yeah.
Whether it's fan footage or the actual highlights, it's amazing. If you haven't seen it yet, I implore you, search it out. It will make your day, this goal. I mean, it's made my season already. I don't think we're going to get anything better than that. Another really nice thing is the lad who actually scored it, kind of forgotten in this whole thing, was 21-year-old Alfie Lloyd. Never scored for QPR, never actually scored a goal in the Football League. And his interview after the game is one of the sweetest things you'll ever watch. He's just so excited and so happy, Justin. Have you seen it?
I have caught a glimpse, but I mean, just to be in that moment,
it's a memorable goal, isn't it?
Just to say I was there. I think it's, there'll be QPR fans thinking, what was I doing on that day? They'll remember it. They'll remember it forever. And so will Alfie Lloyd. Incredible.
Oh, dear me. Let's go to the polls, ladies and gents. This is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions because we want to get their thoughts on everything to do with the Championship. So the first question we asked for the listeners was this: which of these teams will finish highest this season? Burnley, Sheffield United, Sunderland, West Brom.
Wow, West Brom.
Okay. Recency bias there?
Yeah.
Playing into your thinking, Justin?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Not even hiding it. Completely fair. 36% of people said Burnley, 32% said West Brom, 17% said Sheffield United, 15% said Sunderland. We're not saying those 4 are going to be the top 4 coming at the end of the season. Just wanted to pick out 4 teams of kind of similar kind of level and see who people thought would have finished highest out of them. No agendas involved there, ladies and gents. Which of these managers would you pick to be in charge of your club? Carlos Corberán, Rob Edwards, Daniel Farke, Mark Robins.
Carlos Corberán.
Carlos Corberán he's absolutely walked it. 66% of people said Carlos Corberán. I thought people may be swayed by Rob Edwards' beautiful jawline, but he only got 12% of the vote. Mark Robins got 13%. Daniel Farke got 9%, which does feel quite low.
I think it's because, I don't know, maybe it's a Leeds thing. It just seems harsh. Need researching that does. Why does no one rate Daniel Farke? Promotion specialist.
Yeah, it does feel a bit low, and maybe there's a bit of recency bias playing a part in that as well. But yeah, it was a bit surprising seeing that. And finally, what's the best popcorn? Salted, sweet, or a mix of both?
This is a really good debate. I used to have a mix of both, but it was just far too salty, and it genuinely would hurt your lips after a while. Salty popcorn's good, but I just don't think you can beat sweet popcorn. It's got to be cinema popcorn as well.
Cinnamon?
No, cinema.
Oh, cinema.
Yeah.
Cinnamon popcorn will probably be quite nice as well. But cinema popcorn, yes. I 100% agree with you, Justin. It's like crack to me. That stuff, I absolutely love cinema popcorn. I think it's probably terrible for you, but...
Yeah, I know how they cook it as well. I've got inside information. That's for another day. But
Go on.
They cook
Expose big cinema, Justin.
They cook it in a big vat of oil.
Oh, yeah. That's what I like.
I just thought they'd microwave it or something, but it's a big vat of oil. It's really unhealthy, but honestly, you know what? Who cares?
Who cares?
I advocate it.
Yeah, I'm absolutely here for it.